But I think that there is, because of that pressure to like make it at 23 and already be successful, I would encourage you to, and I think some people will debate me on this, but extend your timeline.
All right, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Stick Talk podcast. This is a special episode, dude. It's a long time in the making. We're here with someone who just was super inspiring to Christian and I growing up, doing Real Talk University and first getting into the podcast game. You're basically, dude, like a celebrity on LinkedIn growing up, like a legit celebrity. I mean, you were interviewing guys like Grant Cardone, Dan Locke, Robert Greene, Mark Manson. Who are some of the other names you mentioned, Christian? Ryan Serhant. Just legends. And as a 21-year-old, you did a live podcast with James Altucher. Just like, dude, we were looking at you as like, this is like Mr. Hollywood in the podcast space. And so, dude, thanks for being on the show. I'm excited to dive into more of your story. And as we talk about those episodes and those names, you kind of reference it as like a past life.
Yeah, totally.
Which is so crazy because you're only 25.
Yeah.
And so talk to us about that.
It's completely a past life. And thanks for having me, guys. It's so good to be with you in this freaking cathedral. It's really cool. But yeah, it's interesting. I don't even like identify with that person anymore. And there were a lot of aspects of that person that I liked. And then I think there's a lot of aspects of that person that I didn't like, and which was ultimately the reason why I stopped. As I was kind of alluding to before we got on here, for me at that point in my life, it was all a self-image pursuit. Like I always use the term too, borrowed credibility, you know, and I was describing it as a good thing and speaking about it publicly, which was probably not a good look now that I think about it, but I was basically borrowing other people's credibility to up my own credibility. If I'm seen with this person or that person and that person, it becomes indisputable, my fame and credibility. And that's what I was after. I was assuredly, I assure you, I was after fame.
Yeah.
And it would have been interesting to, as I think about it now, as we're talking about it, it would have been interesting to see where that path took me had I not stopped. I probably 2 years and 9 months in is when I started taking a big hiatus. I had about a 2-year break before I started re-releasing episodes recently.
Rebranding.
Yeah. But yeah, I wonder where it would have taken me.
What went into that decision? Was it just like a cold turkey, like all of a sudden, like I don't want to do this anymore?
Yeah.
Or?
It was I think it was building up for a while where it just felt like week in and week out to put something out on Monday felt like a chore.
Yeah.
And I was at that time, I guess 22 years old. I think I maybe started it when I was 19, 20, 21. Those were like, 2021 was like the heyday of it. And I started around 22. And I guess like that's the most, I think 18 to 21 is when your ego is most active in life. Mm-hmm. So I think it was almost like a natural thing for me at 22, 23 to start being like, okay, I've got maybe bigger, different fish to fry. You know, where are your priorities really? And so, yeah, I think that's what prompted the change. I started feeling like a chore, and I started questioning myself and why I was doing it.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I didn't like myself for the reasons that I was doing it.
Not to say we have a similar experience, but Christian and I, like, we did a podcast for a while, similar to yours. It was called Real Talk University.
Yep.
And same thing, we were like, we got to get the biggest guest.
Yeah.
And then it just got to a point where I'm like, I want to be someone that other people want to interview as well. Like you said, I don't want to just be riding the coattails of, hey, let's go get these big name guests. I want to be a big name guest that other podcasters go out and get, which is where we kind of, flip the script and go and pursue our own career. So what was that like for you? Like, where did you turn to immediately?
Well, first off, actually, I do want to go back to that. I think that it wasn't just, and it is interesting, our names are very similar, Growth Mindset University, Real Talk University. And we obviously, you and I have an interesting history there with you asking to be a guest on my show and me laughing you out of the room.
And rightfully so, bro.
No. And I appreciate, I appreciate that you don't.
I didn't have the blue
judge
check
me
yet
for that nowadays. But anyway, I think that was really a trend back then, like getting the biggest guest. Let me tell you where I got it from, why I started doing that. I saw a gentleman, and I don't know where he is today. I hope he's doing well. Mark Manson, and I'm sure you remember that name.
Yep.
He had a podcast called Humans 2.0. And funny, we've gone on interesting. Last I've heard of him, he changed his show name 2 times as well. The way, we both like stopped and rebranded. So I don't know. I'd be interested to talk to him again. But I think that was the thing. And people would talk about, oh, I got this person. It was like, taking, I'm possessing. We were treating people like material objects to obtain. And that was all very gross too. And I didn't like the conversations I was having in that regard with other podcasters doing that as well. I fell out of love with it. I became disillusioned. Yeah. But anyway, your question.
Dude, I love the honesty. Seriously, that's what people tune in for. And so I appreciate you right out of the gates, just being super vulnerable and real.
Sure.
Super respectable, dude.
Sure. So how are you going about landing Grant Cardone, Brian Serhant?
Yeah, dude.
Love to hear that story.
Yeah, I know why you're bringing this up because the attribution source of those guests that we were just talking about, Christian, is cold email.
Let's go.
We were talking. I don't think you guys were in the room, but if I were to look back, if I had a CRM of all the podcast guests I've had with, what was the attribution source for each, and I was just imagining on the car right here, what would the pie charts look like? And I said that it would probably be about 70% cold email.
Wow.
And then I said 30% referrals, intros, but now I'm going to redact that. It would be like 20% referrals and intros, and then maybe 10% people asking to come on.
Classic.
Yeah. So cold email. And I had a very simple formula. And I'm just remembering this now. I had a cold email course.
No way.
Yeah, I didn't, but I wouldn't call it that.
Yeah,
it was a how to land your dream guests on your podcast course that basically you paid $7 for admission, which you can still do.
Yeah.
If you go to, so the main course, which is a really high-end production, it's jordanparis.com/course. How to do a podcast, which, by the way, that was back in 2018. It's kind of outdated now, but there's some core things there.
Yep.
You can probably find the email course on that page somewhere if you go there. But anyway, yeah, it was, if you pay access to that for $7, it was, you have access to like these 3 templates. And it was basically the initial email, follow-up email 1, follow-up email 2. Like there's no video, nothing, just the raw templates, hence why it was $7. But yeah, so it was obviously like showing them that I've actually paid attention to who they are as a person and proving that I've consumed their content. And I'm not just reaching out as some fanboy. In a way, maybe it came off as fanboyish, but I think showing that I actually understood the nuance of what they were talking about in their books or podcasts or et cetera. I think that won me a lot of brownie points, among other things.
Who was your favorite interview from that era?
I think, and Andre always talks about it, but the James Altucher live interview in New York had an audience of like 20 people in,
cool.
What was it, Stand Up New York, which is this famous comedy club that he owned part of at the time. I think he's since moved to Florida. I don't know if he owns that part of it anymore, but yeah, I think he's in Florida. I wonder
That's
where.
cool.
You guys should connect with him.
Yeah.
I don't still have an in, but that would be a cool interview. But anyway, what was the question?
Favorite guest.
Yeah,
favorite guest.
Yeah, so I think that one was really cool just for the live audience aspect of it. And then a Q&A session. It was really cool.
Yeah.
And that's why when you guys had you announced the town hall
podcast event.
I don't know what the status of that is, but I got excited about that, thinking about like the engagement, fan Q&A, audience Q&A at the end. Other than that, I'd say Grant Cardone was a really interesting one, obviously. I mean, the first thing he said, we get on, he's like, don't threaten me, bro. Don't threaten me. I was like, okay.
Wasn't planning on it.
Yeah. So that was interesting. And then really what I always enjoyed, the gracious guests. You know, sometimes, and rightfully so, I was a 20-year-old kid, you know, talking with really successful person, XYZ, whomever, and, you know, very rare, but it happened. They come on and they're condescending. They're not taking you seriously.
Yeah.
And you know that there's a certain type of energy. And to be fair, I was so full of myself at that time that when I would go on other people's podcasts, that was the energy that I had, honestly. Like, I'm better than you and this, and it was really high and mighty. I didn't like that version of myself. So, gracious guests that come to mind are like Dan Locke. Like, oh my gosh, I love when people just bring the freaking energy and the heat. Even when, you know, they don't know how many listeners of the show there are. I think at the time of Dan Locke, maybe there were 500. Yeah. Like, not many at all, but he's bringing the heat. And I appreciate, like, we're talking like peers, and I appreciate that.
That's cool.
And then later on, you know, we had a few thousand listeners regularly, and I think the highest was Grant Cardone, and that was about 10,000.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Nice.
Humble brag.
That's awesome.
Gotta point that
Uncle
out.
G. Yeah,
So
that's so cool.
I like how you're reflecting on your past self and kind of critiquing your past self as if it's a different guy. Like, how have you been able to look back on your past self and realize, you know, I was young and immature, and now I feel more of a sense of maturity and humble and humility? I don't feel like a lot of people can have that honesty to look back and be like, yeah, I wasn't the best person back then.
You know, I think that I've always had a tendency to do that. And I feel like, I don't know if it was you, but maybe you've talked about this. Maybe it was someone else, that if you don't look back on your past self from 6 months ago and think like,
yeah, who is this guy?
Yeah, like, that's a bad sign in terms of like growth, especially at our stage in our 20s. So I think that that's part of it. But I don't know, man. I'm just a completely different person that I don't even recognize that.
Was there a moment that sparked that where you woke up and you're like, all right, I'm kind of in this for the wrong reasons?
No, yeah, it was gradual. You know, like I said, starting to feel like a chore, and then slowly but surely the doubt week in and week out starts creeping in more and more, like a cold front coming in and approaching, you know, the coast of Florida. It got closer and closer, or like a hurricane. This was, 'cause you know, this tore up, you know, my identity.
That was your identity.
Like, I started over very much after that. Made a big pivot and change in my life. So, yeah, just gradual.
And you've done that a couple of times, right? We're talking about some of the different instances in your life where you've had to start over. What does that look like for you?
I don't like that sometimes too. I do wonder, you know, if I had stuck with one thing 7 years ago. Like a lot of people in, I think, the industry that we know, or, you know, I think a lot of people make a lot of pivots, but there are people that I look at, you know, who kind of came up with us in our generation of entrepreneurship. Or you guys are actually 2 years younger than me, I think. But I wonder, you know, if I stuck with like the first or second thing, you know, where would it be today? I think that largely the pivots have hurt me. I think that
That's the way
you
to
lose
look at
momentum.
But you didn't like it, so I feel like that outweighs, you know, that perspective.
Oh yeah, with each iteration, I'm just getting closer to like my thing, because I've been learning about myself and what I like. And honestly, guys, like up until December of 2021, so basically last year, a year and a half ago, I wasn't in flow with any of my work. I was running a podcast production agency, which some might think like, oh, you know, podcaster, like, yeah, this is probably something you enjoy doing. I was never in flow with that. It was never like a fun agency for me. Like, no part of it was flowy. And it wasn't until I settled on where I am now in the operations side of agency life, building systems, where I've just been in this constant flow for the past year and a half. And it's like, oh, now I've learned about who I am as a person. It makes so much sense, because it just goes back to who I was as a child, because I feel like I'm playing video games again. And I very
Building
much
Legos.
Yeah, or that too. Like, yeah, I very much played with Legos, or, the same way that I would start a franchise in Madden 04 and play that for 20 years up until 2024, or like MLB 2K and do you played, dude, 2K, MLB 2K was good. They stopped making that in like 11 or something. I wish
the show,
now it's the show. Which they didn't have for Xbox.
Bro, during
at the time.
COVID, I was in a Madden league. All 32 teams were user controlled.
Wow.
With a Facebook group, and once a day you would play them. It was so fun.
Wow. That sounds so cool.
It was.
Probably wouldn't have moved at the pace I would have wanted to, though, because I'll do 20 years in 30 days. Like, I never played the game.
You go on beginner and like you go 16-0 every year. Like.
But very much like the way that I would construct a roster year in, year out, and stock draft picks, and move pieces around and manage money. Now I feel like I'm doing that with the systems that I design.
That's so cool.
And the business that I'm building. And it's fun.
So talk about what that actually looks like, because I'm sure a lot of people are listening and saying, what are systems? Like, what type of businesses is this for? How does this actually help people? Because I can tell you guys firsthand, this guy is a lifesaver for a lot of people. In a lot of ways, he gives people their life back. So just dive a little deeper into what that actually looks like, what type of businesses is for, and where you step in.
Yeah, and you could, people in Quintessential, like when you say get their life back, I think of Anthony Marsilio, who
I love Anthony.
He's such a cool personality.
He's got the greatest energy.
Just the best, most positive like energy. That I love that guy. He was getting phone calls from clients and texts, day in, day out, every weekend, like fielding client phone calls. Now, look, when we come in and build systems for your business, like that problem isn't fixed overnight. It's not like, hey, spend $10,000 with me and we're going to give you these systems, and then in 3 weeks when you have these systems, like you're going to be good to go. You're never going to receive a client phone call again. But like we're building, and we'll get into the specifics, but we're building for businesses the foundation, the infrastructure, the foundation for which they can then plug people into their business. And it's a foolproof and repeatable process, kind of like a McDonald's or a Starbucks, that anybody can follow. It's foolproof because there's attached to every single deliverable in the agency. You can see your deliverables 4 months out, and they all have who, what, how, when. Everything all defined. And I'm just doing a little bit of a feature dump here. But every deliverable has the what, right? The deliverable. The who's the deliverable owner? Who's the manager? The when, what's the start date? What's the due date? And then the how, which is like preferably an automatically attached SOP. That's how you build a foolproof and repeatable business, which when you make your business more repeatable, it makes your business more valuable in the eyes of investors if you ever want to. Yeah, exactly.
And you just interviewed the author of Built to Sell, which you mentioned is one of your favorite business books. Likewise, like, talk us through that system, right? Like, building systems makes your business more valuable. To me, it's almost like building systems makes your business a business. Right? I feel like you don't really have a business without repeatable processes and systems. So maybe talk about just how you think of that.
Yeah. Well, and that's John Werlow, Built to Sell. Highly recommend. If you run a business, especially in our space, because it's a business fable about an agency.
Yeah.
Not a digital one, but an agency. So it's immensely valuable. Whether you want to sell your business or not, you have to get that book.
Absolutely.
So anyhow, the question.
Just how do you think of just a business and systems? Like, what does that look like? How do you go from having maybe just a freelancer agency to an actual business that someone would put a value on?
Yeah, I would say like the first tactical step that anybody can do is build what I call a templated project plan. And that's basically steps A through Z from day 1 to day 180 of what happens on day 1, day 2, day 3, like what's every single little deliverable that happens from day 1 to day 180 and beyond, even if you want to go that far. And so a lot of times, as we see in agencies, this will be a 40 or 50 or sometimes 70 step templated project plan. Every little thing that happens. So that's the first step to making your fulfillment a more repeatable process. And then once you have those, like, it doesn't even have to be anywhere special like Airtable or ClickUp or wherever. Like, you can just write it out as a helpful exercise to, even if you're the only person in your business right now, like, to just have that listed out. Like, I've done consulting one-off, which I don't usually do, but when I get people to do that, they're like, oh my gosh, this gives me so much confidence, so much more confidence in my delivery. Like, now I know exactly what's happening next. I don't have to think on my feet like, oh, we're doing this next. Once you have every step outlined, it's then very easy to record an SOP or a training for each little deliverable, which you can then plug people into, and they can fulfill the product or service for you.
Dude, I remember maybe like a year ago or a couple of months ago, we got on a call to reconnect after some time. And he was legit showing me on the screen exactly what he's telling you guys here, which is like an Airtable with like a 180-day roadmap for what happens when you sign a client. It's like 3 days later, 4 days later, 7 days later. And it's like the step. There's a document attached that shows how to do the step. There's like a person assigned to the step. It was just unbelievable, dude.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. And building that was just the time of my life.
Yeah.
Like, I wish I could go back and like rebuild this stuff, you know? So that's why it's like, whenever I get to work with a new type of agency,
It's exciting.
yeah, you know, typically I'm not the one fulfilling, obviously.
Yeah.
That's what my whole business is about. But whenever we, like, for example, the first time that we signed on a lead generation agency was about a year ago at this point. And so I got to build systems for a lead generation agency, and that was like, oh my gosh, it was so fun. So, you know, I've done most types of agencies out there at this point. So I don't know how many more types there are, but man, like, I'm itching for like a new type of project that I can personally lead and get in flow with. But anyway.
So how old were you when you went from the podcast to the agency game, like systems and stuff?
I mean, I've been in the agency space for really a long time, probably since 2018.
Right.
But I stopped producing the podcast regularly in, I think, March of 2021.
So I guess just to rephrase the question, when was the moment, what year was it when you realized, I don't want to do this podcast anymore, this isn't my career, I want to pivot to something new? Was that like 2020?
2021.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
So you were 23 at that point?
Yeah, I guess I was, yeah.
What are you thinking about, Christian? Leaving us?
No, how do you...
He's like, I'm about 23. My time's up.
Taking my talents somewhere else.
So what do you say to somebody that's, 22, 23 right now, and they don't really know what they want to do for a living? Because for you already had something established and you scrapped it and went back to zero to do something else. Talk about, why everyone has their own timeline and not to rush into anything.
Don't be afraid to be Colonel Sanders of Kentucky Fried Chicken. Don't be afraid to have to wait until 65 until you make it. Like, I think there's a lot of pressure because you guys are so young and you've got this big business, right? And multiple great businesses. And there's a lot of people our age that are very successful that, awesome, right?
Yep.
But I think that there is, because of that pressure to like make it at 23 and already be successful. So I would encourage you to, and I think some people will debate me on this, but extend your timeline, because I think a lot of people, especially in entrepreneurship, they will die of a broken heart. And I think it's good to great. Jim Collins talks about this in particular. He had lunch with somebody who was a prisoner of war in the 70s in Vietnam or something like that. And he said that the people who didn't make it, they were the ones that would say, oh, we'll be out by Christmas, we'll be out by summer, we'll be out by this time. And they quite literally would die of a broken heart because
they were let down.
It wouldn't happen at that point. So don't let your entrepreneurial dreams be crushed by heartbreak. You expected it dude, when I was 18, to think that, and I think the perception was that at 22 I had made it. But financially I actually hadn't. I was optimizing for fame, not money.
Yep.
But to think that my bank account wouldn't show $1 million at 22, I would have been like, are you serious? So yeah, don't let your entrepreneurial dreams be crushed by a broken heart because you're expecting it to happen sooner than it actually will. Yeah.
It sucks to see that happen so often, especially today. And I think programs like Quintessential, it kind of, in a way, is the cause of that because you see these programs that promise these insane results in such a short time period that it almost is programming the market to make that the norm. And if you don't see those results, there's something wrong with you or you're not doing the right thing.
And I've been there. I know what that feels like.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
And just it's even worse to see people give up after going through something like that.
Yeah.
And so I love what you said is just expand the time horizon. But I guess a more practical question that I've always battled with is, how do I know?
How's the Yeo, bro?
How's the Yeo?
I like it.
Good.
Can we
crack open the
Can we just explain the Yeo for a second here?
No, you're good. I got the question.
Yeah, these are, my girlfriend insisted on bringing an offering, my lovely Asian girlfriend, chrysanthemum tea drink straight from the, where is it? We were just at, it's called Oceanic, it's this Asian grocery store around here. It's like right around the block.
Very cool.
Yeah.
That's how I open up most of my text message conversations.
Yo.
Yeah.
Yo.
Yeah.
This is much more pleasant than slonking eggs.
Oh, this tastes really good. It's like very lightly
nice.
sweetened tea.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Oh,
And-
dude, that's great.
Yeah.
That's
Especially
great.
on ice too. So typically you'll have like, not typically, but a lot of times we'll have chrysanthemum tea with rock sugar. It's literally like it's like a crystal looking rock, and you pour the tea in, the hot tea, and you got the rock sugar, and it'll slowly melt, and then you can put ice in. It's nice. So it tastes like the rock sugar is what
That's
I'm tasting
cool.
right now. Yeah.
Yeah, dude, that's refreshing. Appreciate you bringing those.
Also, nobody's going to be able to spell chrysanthemum. That's if they're looking this
It's
up.
a tough word.
Throw it in the show
Yeah.
notes. What was your question, though?
So my question was like, okay, there's a lot of instances where you're like, okay, expand the time horizon, right? And then where my mind goes, and I know a lot of others as well, is like, if this doesn't work and I do it for so long, like, how do I know I'm in the right opportunity vehicle? Because the biggest fear, at least that I had coming up, is like, if I'm spending all this time, 7 years in the wrong thing, and it is the wrong thing, and I'm playing the long time horizon, and it's just not ever going to work anyways. How do you kind of evaluate the opportunity vehicle?
Do you feel like you're playing video games? Or whatever it was when you were a child. I'm a big believer in connecting with who you were as a child. And a lot of, I'm constantly striving to reconnect with that person. And that's a lot of times, I mean, we were talking last month about how, or a couple of months ago, about how I like to spend a month with my parents every year.
Yeah.
I just got back from that last week.
That's awesome.
So I was up where I grew up in Pennsylvania, and I think that's why I like to spend a month there every year, because there are things that I drive by, or books, Dr. Seuss, that put me in that frame of mind of who I was as a child. But anyway, yeah, do you feel like you're playing video games or whatever it was that you really enjoyed doing as a child? I think if it has some connection to who you were as a child, then that's really a good sign. Yeah. And really what I'm getting at there, how do you dumb that question down, make it simpler, more relatable for people? Are you in flow with what you are doing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you really enjoy it?
Yeah.
Do you get lost in it?
So maybe talk about a day in the life of when you're not in flow versus a day in the life of when you are in flow, just to make it more tangible for the audience.
Yeah, a day in flow is like, your body is so excited that it wakes you up at 4 a.m. to like build this thing that you've been thinking about, or do this thing that you just can't wait to do next. And you couldn't, it was so hard last night to sign off of the computer because you were having so much fun, and your body just wakes up early the next day to do it. And you're like thinking about it as you're falling asleep. Like that's
Flow.
a good sign. And then when you're not in flow is, of course, when it just feels like you're going through the motions and you're not, there's no particular thing that you're ever doing in the business that you enjoy at all. Now, at the same time, I think that there's a caveat to make here, because that thing that you really enjoy, the reason that you started the business, the reason why I started my business, ZeusOS.co, that's ZEUSOS.co
//
Yes, yeah, that's what it was. Nick Barry's, yeah. That's what I was channeling there.
Call that.
But anyway, the reason that you started the business, that thing that you love doing, if you continue doing that thing forever, then you're just a freelancer, and that's not a good thing. It's a good reason to start a business, but you have to be careful to not stay attached to that forever.
Yep.
And I think it's a little bit heartbreaking in a way to break off, because I've been out of fulfillment for about a year. I really haven't touched that. And it's been a little bit heartbreaking. I do kind of long for those days again. But at the end of the day, if you want to keep doing that, like, just go be a freelancer. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yep.
You can do that. But that's not the decision that I've made.
It is very enjoyable, though, seeing now, like, building a team, right? That's where, for me, it gets super fun.
Yeah.
Like, you're building your Madden team.
People ops. Yeah.
Right? You're building your team.
Yeah. And the people that you surround yourself with. I love the people side of the business.
Yeah.
I do. Yeah.
Some people hate it.
Well, look,
people are like, leave me alone.
If I ran a 100-person organization, which I don't, maybe I would feel that way. I don't know.
Yeah. Smaller operation.
Yeah, I was going to say the caveat I would put on it is even if your business is focused around something that you love to do, it's inevitable that you're going to have to do shit that you don't like to do for a certain period of time.
Yeah.
And that's why when you mentioned, like, sometimes programs like Client Ascension are the reason why people think short-sighted. But the good thing that we do is we're very realistic about the inputs that have to go into it. And even if you don't like sales, you're going to have to learn sales. Because if you don't have lead flow yet, you can't hire a salesperson.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to be able to close at a 25% rate with cold traffic before you can realistically outsource that to somebody.
Yeah.
So I think it's about... yes, doing something where you can be proud of the work that you do and enjoy overseeing the high-level tasks that your business is focused around, but also being realistic and realizing I'm going to have to do shit I don't want to do. I can sprint through it, and as long as I'm working with somebody like Jordan who can help me systemize it and document it properly, that doesn't have to be a year-long thing, right? That can be, you can accomplish that over the course of months. And I feel like that's why so many people give up, is they're stuck too long doing shit they don't like to do. They're afraid to delegate, and they're not quick enough to go to people like us to say, hey, help me out. I don't like doing this. How can I get out of it as quickly as possible? Because in reality, if you're talking to people who have already gone through that, it may only be a couple months of hard work they have to put in.
Now, Dan, the ultimate hack is having a partner or partners in your case.
I'm aware.
to own those areas of the business that you don't want to own, that you're not in flow with, that you would prefer not to do. It is tough as a solo founder. And however, if you're not operations inclined, we're basically your operations focused co-founder. Like, we're your COO. Like, that's why Zeus exists.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Such a good model. What's the name behind it? Zeus.
Oh,
It just
crazy.
sounds like
Zeus
badass.
is the god of all gods. Yeah. It was funny. One of my new team members yesterday on our weekly rocket fuel meeting, he said, "Happy Father's Day." Oh no, that was today. Actually, today's Monday. Gosh, so long ago. It's like a past life. But it was. It's like a different day. But anyway, I said, "Happy Father's Day." I'm not a father. I was like, I said, I'm not a father. My kid's like, he's a new team member. I was like, I guess he doesn't know. He's like, Zeus. I'm like, so yeah, I'm the father of Zeus, who is the god of gods. Yeah.
I love that.
Nothing crazy behind the name. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah, maybe I hired the wrong guy.
No, I love that. I love the
Well,
energy.
So like
Father's Day, man, you're fired.
agency systems daddy.
That should be your new
Twitter bio.
YouTube.
I've
YouTube
thought about
slogan.
that. Yeah.
I love it, bro. So going into some more tactical stuff here, you talked about like rocket fuel meeting, building a team, hiring. I know you built out an entire section of content in Client Ascension that's just so freaking good, dude.
Dude,
I learned so much
you.
from those videos.
Thanks for your
Selfishly,
support.
I'm like watching them myself. I'm like, yeah, this is fire.
Hey, look, let me take a pause here. This guy is like the nicest guy that I know. Like dude, you're such a builder upper of people.
I
like,
appreciate it, bro.
Except
you
me,
hype
he makes
people
fun
up.
of me.
Yeah, I guess that's what happens when you get too close to Andre the True Color show. But yeah, man, and I just want to acknowledge that
thank you, dude.
part of you.
I appreciate it.
I just love the way that you support other people.
Appreciate it, dude. Seriously, thank you. Thank you, bro. And likewise, like I feel like we have such relatable stories and personalities, which is why I feel like we get along really well. But anyways, you built out this entire section of Client Ascension, which talk about me, giving to people. You just gave back to the community you paid to be in, which I just think is just the most amazing thing with valuable content. So talking to business owners out there, I think the number one thing that comes up is when do I hire? Who do I hire? How do I hire? Right? These are all questions that come up and people just can never crack the code, and I feel like you've cracked it. And so maybe dive in a little bit to your strategy there.
First off, a really good book to buy on this subject. You know what I'm going to recommend. I think you've read it as well. Is Who by Jeff Smart and Randy Street. Very good book. Mm-hmm. Not to be confused with Who, Not How, which is also another really good book, tangentially related to hiring. So, yeah, when it's always like, people are looking for like a capacity equation. I would just think very logically about or realistically, not just like, oh, I want to hire someone because it's like, it's a sexy idea. Like, let me hire someone. Let me hire my first person, my second person. Like, seriously think about how much work is going to be available for them. If you've got any way to estimate that, sit down and figure that out, because you're dealing with people's livelihoods here. And unless you explicitly put in your job application that you are looking for only 10, 15 hours a week and you're looking to bring somebody on slow, this is a part-time role, you've got to have them ready to work. Otherwise, the expectations are going to be all out of whack. Whenever you've got 30 hours, and again, hard to estimate, but if you feel like you've got 30 hours a week of work for them, go ahead, put an application out there. Yeah. I feel like, honestly, guys, I feel like I have a better answer to this. I know I do, and it's just not coming to me. So anyhow, maybe we can revisit that. But as far as the how, I think there's a lot of good ways to do that. I think a good website that I've had a lot of success with is, just getting super tactical here, is talent.hubstaff.com, free job board. The incentive for them to make it free is hubstaff.com is a time tracker.
Okay.
So you hire them.
Great tool, by the way.
Oh, it's great. Yeah. So it works out for them. I hire a bunch of people from there, and then we end up using them for the time tracking as well, and they get an extra user there. So anyway, which is a brilliant model, brilliant thing for them to offer for free. Upwork is also good. And then what I'd like to do in those applications, again, getting tactical, is I put a test at the end. To be fully considered for this job, you have to, can you please apply at, zoosos.co/whatever.
See if they're reading.
Mm-hmm. That separates the people who are actually paying attention, detail-oriented, and just going beyond the bare minimum, and not just putting out spam applications. Same thing, you put something out on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's crazy. You put out a job on LinkedIn, it'll have 70 applicants in one day. Crazy. You know how many will actually apply on your website and fill out the full application?
One.
Maybe one. Most times 0. Because LinkedIn has a way to easy apply, right?
Yeah, just tap to apply.
Yeah. So, that's a good thing to put in there to really weed people out. And then from there, you might have 5 or 10 people that you want to, usually 10 is a good
pool.
Maybe 7 to 10 is a good range of people to interview. Mm-hmm. You shouldn't just interview 2 people for the job and then you make the hire. And then you shouldn't just hit it off with them once. and then hire them. Oh my gosh. So many times I have hit it off with somebody in the first interview. And then I invite them to the second interview, which in that book is called the top grading interview, which is much more in depth, takes about an hour, sometimes a little bit more, sometimes less, depending on how wordy the person is. And they just utterly fail it, for lack of a better term. And I'm like, there you go. Like, that's why you do your due diligence. So yeah, that's the long and short of it, the tactical of hiring. Yeah,
I love it, bro.
When you're hiring somebody, do you care more about a culture fit or skills?
Oh yeah, the culture fit. Absolutely. Like, oh, there's so many people that they have the requisite skills, Christian, but their attitude just isn't there. Like, they're not bringing the right energy. They're just going through the motions on the interview. Like, they just don't have the right energy. Like, can you envision them with your team in a team meeting, however small that team meeting may be? Maybe you're only 3 or 4 people. Like, can you picture vibing with them in the team meeting? Yes or no?
Yeah.
If there's hesitation there, like, don't hire them.
Yeah.
Because they can be as skilled, it's cliche, but like, they can be as skilled as could possibly be. But if they're not a culture fit and they have a, okay subpar attitude, then that's going to bring the whole team down.
If you vibe with someone but they bomb the technical interview, are you still like, I could teach this kid all the skills he's messing up on right now? Or
Yeah, I would say for the most part. However, what I like to do, Christian, is I like to hire someone who I think maybe they had some past skills, or they studied something in college, or maybe who they were as a kid or what they liked doing kind of translates nicely to the role.
Yep.
As an example, one of the recent people I hired, and it's to be determined how it works out because he's only on week 2, but I'm hiring for a technical role, basically like a technical admin. He doesn't have any experience in Zapier, Make, Airtable, ClickUp, like none of that. No, he's never worked in an agency before. In fact, he's straight out of college. Like, really, he's been a voice actor and an aviation mechanic. And then he got a degree in that as well, aviation mechanics.
That's cool.
And so I was like, okay, and he was telling me about, how he got into that and, his interest as a child and with computers. And I was like, okay, this has a high likelihood to translate to the role here. He's got a high potential to develop the way that I need him to develop. Yeah. So it's not like completely, irrelevant. Yeah.
Makes sense.
I love that. I feel like you could always go back to, like you said, childhood interests, like where they come from. Like, you're always good in sports, which I feel like is common for sales.
Yeah.
Right? So
yeah, I would say so for sure.
What did you play? Football?
Football, basketball, and lacrosse growing up. Mainly football. That was my primary sport. I was convinced I was going pro. Then playing out, and I just sell stuff online for these guys.
Man, I'd love to play basketball with you guys.
Oh,
it's a good time.
So fun.
Me and Christian still play a couple times a week usually. Play pickup.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
I love sports. I'm like the most competitive person there is.
Really?
I've been thinking recently, this is my obsession of the weekend. My girlfriend surprised us with a pickleball set.
Oh,
we have in our neighborhood, there's pickleball courts. So we've been playing. I'm like, dude, I always wanted to be a professional athlete. I always wanted to be an athlete, a star athlete. And why not just create the league? Like, put it on YouTube, have like a really dope scoreboard like TNT, like make it like that, right? And like just be mic'd up with a Rode wireless mic. And I'm hilarious when I'm playing these games. Like, I like my sense of humor. That's one of the things that I really like about myself. It stems in childhood. I won class clown award in 4th grade. Like,
there you go.
Yeah. I'm funny. I think it would hit. And it would just be a lot of fun too.
I love that.
Yeah. Like
Pickleball
Bush League, you know?
Yeah, Bush League. There's a good name for you right there.
Yeah.
Bush League pickleball. I feel like that'd go super viral.
Yeah.
People would love that.
It could work. Get Get Jake Trinder or Eamon
Yeah.
to edit those.
Oh my God.
What would the titles be like? Think about that.
I don't even know.
Yeah.
Yeah, pickleball is a lot of fun, dude. You gotta stay active. I feel like outside of business, especially just doing some other stuff. One thing I actually wanted to get into conversation with you about was, I think it was maybe the past 6 months or so, you've been traveling like all over, and I think that's speaks a lot to your ability to build a business that you're not so involved in fulfillment, building a team that's there for you, and you're traveling or on a different time zone. Yeah. And so maybe talk about your experience traveling as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, up until May of this year, for context, for the listeners, I wasn't in the United States. Like, this is my first time in the This is my first time, rather, back home. I've been home in my home
bro.
For 5 days, and it's nice to walk into your house and just like, wow, it's got a different feel.
Yeah.
We were in some places that were pretty homey, but nothing beats home. So that's nice. But yeah, where do we want to go here? Yeah, I traveled all year.
What was the top spot?
Montenegro, as I was showing you pictures earlier of Kotor Bay. Just look up Kotor Bay. Really, in my opinion, the most beautiful place on earth. At the very least, the most beautiful place that I've ever been. Went on some sick hikes. Just the color of the water, the Mediterranean. So my gosh. It's, like I said, one of the most beautiful areas. That was my favorite place.
And like logistically, like what is the best way to travel, would you say? Were you doing like Airbnbs? Were you hopping on flights?
Yeah, always, for the most part, I think Airbnbs, I think maybe there was a hotel or two sprinkled into there, but at a hotel, you don't get the amenities and the space that you get at an Airbnb.
Yeah.
And we like to cook and have healthy habits that way. So cooking at home is the easiest way to eat healthy. And so we would always do Airbnbs and have a nice kitchen and all that sort of thing. Now, we would do a country per month. I find that that's like the perfect amount of time
interval
in a country. And then we would fly to the next country. So we went from Portugal, flew to Spain, and then flew to Italy, and then flew to Turkey, where we got a canceled connecting flight, and then that was crazy. Yeah. And then Montenegro, flew there. It's more stressful when you have to take public transportation.
Yeah.
When you have to get on a flight, like those are the stressful travel days. Once we got into Montenegro, we had a car rented for like €8 a day, man. It was awesome. Like, solid car. It's a Citroen.
Yeah.
Yeah, French-made car. It was smooth. I liked the way it drove. We also had a minivan too that was not smooth at all, and that was not fun to drive. But anyway, much easier getting around. We basically went all over the country of Montenegro and all over Albania. Much easier to travel without having to do public. So when you don't have to do public transit.
For anyone listening that doesn't have, to me it sounds like you went from Portugal to Spain to Italy to Montenegro. That's a lot of money to travel. So what are ways you can save while you're traveling?
Ways you can save?
Save money, yeah.
Well, I don't pride myself on being a scrimper and saver.
No, 100%.
Yeah,
Not exactly.
Just make more money.
However, like, things are just more affordable in Europe.
Yeah.
That car for €8 a day. The multiple that I've been telling people and that I've calculated is things in Montenegro and Albania, when you compare it to the United States are 3 to 5, sometimes 6 times more expensive. Just about everything. The exceptions are health and fitness products, gas, which is twice as expensive. It's like $7 per gallon. At least it was. Of course, they do euros per liter. So it says like 184.
You're like, oh, it's cheap.
Oh, yeah, right. It's crazy. So then there's also things that swing the other way, like things that are 10 times more expensive in the United States than those countries. But anyway, I think Airbnb is like a really good way to do it, especially when you do like a long-term stay. You know, in Spain, we stayed in the same place for 30 days. You get a discounted monthly rate for that. And it's really convenient too, because you don't got to pick up and travel every week, which we did do in other countries. It's a give and take, because obviously you want to see a lot of the country. But you in Spain, it was nice because we did put our clothes in a closet. We weren't living out of a suitcase. We were in one place. But yeah, I think Airbnb honestly is very affordable, especially in these other countries. And just by nature, it's way more affordable than the United States. I'm coming back here, and it's not like not being able to afford it. It's like it is sticker shock on just about everything. Yeah. We would get $5 of produce every single day off the streets in Albania or Montenegro.
And it's super fresh. Isn't the food quality there just much better?
It's amazing. Yeah, and I can't verify this, but they say like just naturally everything's organic. Like they don't use pesticides in that country. That's what I've heard. I don't know.
I believe it just based off how I felt after eating there compared to here.
Lebanon, you're talking about? Yeah.
Lebanon, Dubai. We were in Portugal last year as well, which was amazing.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's like they've optimized the supply chain here too much, to the point where now if you get fruit, it's from like, you know, if you get lemons, it could be from California. And there's no way you can get from California to Florida without spraying a bunch of shit on it.
Yeah.
So it's just all gone downhill from here. And there's so many chemicals that are banned everywhere else that are just commonplace in the United States.
Totally.
It's crazy to think about. But what did a day in the life look like when you were over in Europe running the business? Was that something where like you're working 8-hour days? Or?
Oh no, like literally would just. Usually I'm an early riser, but we were waking up. We're waking up 8 o'clock there, which is sometimes 9. We were waking up naturally. Usually we don't do that. Usually, oh my gosh, I love health and fitness is my passion, or it used to be. That was another past life. That was my first thing I ever did.
Really?
Personal trainer, yeah. But I wake up most mornings here to a sunrise alarm clock. You know, gradual light stimulation over a period of 60 minutes.
Is that on Amazon?
It is, and it's $40. I don't think the price has increased in a few years. I would check it out. There's about 100 different brands. It's like all produced in China.
You got a referral link?
I don't. AMZN.2. I have that for built to sell, which I don't have memorized. But anyway, so I wake up to that here. But a day in the life over there. Wake up 8, 9 o'clock, work out, read, not in that order, read and then work out. And then that takes us to about 10 o'clock most mornings. And then if we're in a city, we'll hit the streets and we will walk around the city and have good eats. We weren't incredibly healthy while we were over there. We experienced the food. It was awesome. So do that until like 3 o'clock, and then that's 9 o'clock Eastern time. So yeah, we would just like, life came first, which was so cool. It wasn't wake up, work out, work. It was wake up, live life for like 8 hours, and then do some work. It was nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds super nice, bro.
Yeah.
I'm like getting all like peaceful and calm listening.
I liked my schedule there. I think it's quite conducive to happiness.
Yeah.
Now there's downsides. You could argue, you're wasting your mental or decision making power the first 7 hours of the day, and when you get there at 3 o'clock, you're not as fresh. I didn't notice that to be the case, but I did think about that. Like, is there a case for that? But anyway.
Or if you need to talk to a client on the West Coast, it's going to be...
Those were hard.
Yeah.
Those were hard. Yeah. I didn't have to do that very often, but I actually have a sales rep, though, who is on the West Coast.
Nice.
So my 6 o'clock was his 9 o'clock. So we'd have 6 o'clock calls.
Check-ins.
That was a downside. Yeah.
That's super convenient, though. Just lining up the time zones like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I love that, dude.
Where's your favorite spot?
Montenegro.
Yeah.
Like Okay, so
like
top 3 cities you visited.
Yeah. So I was just saying to my girlfriend on the way here that my favorite city was a city called Tirana. I say that everyone thinks I say like Toronto. It's Tirana. Tirana.
Like a Boston guy.
And it's a big city, very much like New York City in the middle of Albania. Not a ton of people in the country of Albania. Pretty sparsely populated, but in that city there's 1 million people.
Oh wow!
Which I think is about. I could be wrong. Could be very wrong, but I think it's about a third of the size of New York City. So it's 20 times bigger than Tampa, dude.
Wow,
it's huge. And we stayed in a really cool area called Bloku, Bllokku.
Bloku.
And that is, if you don't know the history of Albania, it's quite interesting. Communism, it's really the most paranoid, anxious, crazy country of the 20th century. Look up some YouTube videos. It's interesting. Like they would put, the leader would put, Enver Hoxha, he planted microphones in fields across the country. There's 70,000 bomb bunkers. As you're driving across the country, like you just see bomb shelters everywhere, like bunkers, these black bunkers, like. It was paranoid, and it was very much cut off from the outside world, very much like, I guess, North Korea today. So I guess, anyway, that's off topic. I was going to that's inspiring for North Korea, right? Like, maybe they could break out of it one day. But anyway, Tirana was a really cool city. The Bloku neighborhood is where the communist elite used to live, and it was taped off. You couldn't get in there if you were a regular citizen until after the 90s when the regime fell. So it's now very modern and very classy. That's cool. And really just a cool area. Other city, Montenegro is my favorite country, but they don't really have big cities at all. So then from there, I would say Rome. The cacio e pepe, the carbonara. Like, we don't have real cacio e pepe, real carbonara. Like, we don't have that stuff over here. It's not. It is very different over there. It's very salty. Oh, I love it. Really good. I loved the food there. And then we went into like Florence and Siena, and I was thinking, oh, this whole month is going to be heaven when I was in Rome for that first week. Turns out the cuisine is different in every region. So when we got up into the Tuscany region, which was Florence, it's mostly all sandwiches, which were fire, like no doubt. Very good. Best sandwiches ever. But I'm a pasta guy. Yeah. I was in heaven for a week, and then it ended. So Rome, and then Madrid. Awesome city. Yeah. Highly recommend it.
Madrid.
Specifically, if anyone's thinking of going there, the Las Letras neighborhood. It's where writers like Ernest Hemingway
that's cool.
and whoever wrote Don Quixote, I forget his name, but a very famous Hispanic, Spanish fable. Very famous book. But, Miguel de Cervantes or something. Anyway, writers used to write there and live there. Yeah.
Wow. You were a writer. I know you talked about that a lot on your podcast. Do you still write?
I don't. And I think maybe once a month I reminisce and dream of getting back to it, because I do get in flow writing.
Yep.
That was some of the best times of my life have been writing for 7 hours a day.
Wow.
Like, sheesh. Yeah, that was some of the best. But
did you have a couple of books? What'd you write?
Yeah. Andre can relate. Andre and I talked about this last year on a podcast that we did. That we, it's an interesting relationship that I have with the books that I wrote, you know, because I look back on them and I kind of cringe.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a 21-year-old. Maybe I was even 20 when I wrote a book called Growth Mindset University. That, of course, was the name of the podcast, too. I'm writing a self-help book, and I'm 20 years old.
Yeah.
Like, that's the most cringe thing I've ever done. So I think about unpublishing that stuff, dude. Like, I really think about that at least once a month. The other book was a little more tactical. I don't cringe about that. That's called the Podcast Playbook.
Love that.
At least you got the self-awareness to actually look back on that and be like, it probably wasn't the best idea in hindsight.
Wasn't
but
the best.
You develop that muscle
Yep.
for the next time that you do want to go write a book.
And it was a period of self-discovery too.
Yeah.
Like things were pouring out of me that I had no idea. I was developing my own personal philosophy. So it was a helpful personal exercise to write a 163-page book, but not one that's maybe beneficial for other people or nothing that really serves your bank account or anything like that. You know?
Yeah, the book is crazy, dude. That journey is like, it's a lot.
You wrote one too.
Christian wrote one too.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I know about yours. What the heck kind of book did you write?
Mine was all about networking. I was 19, 20.
And what's your relationship with it? What do you think about it?
I like it.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah.
I think it's, if you hand it to a college kid, you could learn how to network.
Totally.
You know, people don't understand like how to give a firm handshake anymore. It's kind of sad.
Yeah.
You know, so. And it was basically just how we connected with a lot of people for the podcast, like 18-year-old kids landing big guests, like how to network over email, LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Nurture your relationships, that kind of stuff.
That's awesome, man. I feel like this is, it's an odd, as I described to you last year, it's an odd and rare like fraternity of sorts to be in. People who wrote books as 20-year-olds. Us three here. Interesting.
Very interesting.
Probably a tiny fraternity, huh?
Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I was texting Cam earlier, and we were talking about the book. He's like, "Yeah, I gotta join that club." I'm like, just wait a couple of years.
Totally.
No
Dude,
rush.
I plan on like doing it again because it is enjoyable. But like I'm giving that at least a 10, 20-year time horizon until I even start thinking about that.
Do you ever go back and listen? Like I was today going back and listening through some of your episodes from the podcast. And we do this sometimes with Real Talk University too. And obviously there's moments where it's cringe.
Yeah.
But there's also moments where you hear something and at the time in the moment didn't really hit. You didn't really fully grasp or understand it. But now today with all the life experience you have, it's like, whoa, that was, like a knowledge bomb. You ever have that?
Honestly, guys, I avoid it.
You avoid it?
I'm very avoidant of that whole, that whole period.
I don't listen to anything. I just do.
Yeah, I cannot. I haven't listened to an episode in many years. I've been thinking. Sometimes I think about it. Specifically, I think about listening to my conversation with like Robert Greene.
Yep.
He's my. You're gonna ask me the question, the lightning round. Who do you most want to have dinner with? Like
He's
Robert
one.
Greene's the number one. Yeah.
So you follow like the Stoic philosophy pretty much?
Yeah. More so like human nature, human behavior. It's my thing. It's kind of
cool.
the lens at which I look at the world through.
Very cool.
Have you guys read like any of his books?
Yeah, I'm reading. There's the daily one now.
Yeah,
where
the
he's
Daily
got the
Laws.
reading. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. It's like a little snippet every day.
Yeah.
And the thing that he does really well that you're starting to do in this podcast is you'll bring in like stories and people. Like you're talking about the writers in these cities, and I just think that's the coolest thing. Just makes it so much more interesting.
Yeah, I think it's called you could call it conversational threading. You can answer a question. Hey, Jordan, what do you think about this? Oh, I think this. Or you could answer a yes and no question as, oh, yes. But then add in a couple more things like, oh yeah, and I like this country and, it was my favorite city because this and we did this here. And there's more things for the person who asked the question to then go off of.
Yep.
Whereas if you just kind of give a plain answer, the conversation kind of dies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely, dude. I love that. Robert Greene is good.
So saw you shaking your head. No, you haven't dove into any of his work.
No, I haven't.
How many books have you read?
You would love it.
Ask him how many books he's read.
I swear,
One of those
guys. I think
guys.
I've only ever read one book in my entire life.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm very much a skim through the book, find the information, go from there. And then also audiobooks. 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. I must have read 90% of it.
It's like an impressive thing.
Must have.
I thought you were going to say I read it 9 times.
No.
90%.
That's not even one book that I've read.
Audiobooks are cool.
Yeah, I've always been even in school when I was a young kid. I think I was the first person in our grade to discover Cliff Notes. I was very much just get it done. get it done, find the information, like extract it. I'll read book summaries. I just don't read books. I'm getting into it now though. Reading a really good book that I'm enjoying by Oren Clough called Flip the Script, which I'd highly recommend for anybody in sales. And he's an extremely entertaining writer. So I think I'm going to finish that, but I don't want to spoil. I'm like 90 pages in, which is like not even a joke. Like the furthest I've been in like 3 years. Starting a book.
We
like,
debate
what
you on this.
here?
I'm like,
I'm all, everyone's all about inputs. You guys talk about inputs, focus on inputs. I think it's like a book or something. I think of like, I'm calling you out.
Yeah.
I feel like not finishing a book is a bad input. It's like a not finishing what you started type thing. Like even now I take it to an extreme where like I hurt myself in that I finish a bad book that is not beneficial to me.
Just to finish it.
Yeah, like I waste time finishing books sometimes. Yeah. Anyhow.
Well, you know what happens with me most of the time? If it's like the subject matter is related to what I'm doing in life, I'll go through the book, then I'll start implementing it in my own life, and I'll just forget about the book. Whereas I'd rather do that than be like some of the other guys where you're talking about their business. They're like, yeah, you know, one client, 1K a month, been at this for a year and a half.
But I read all these books.
But I know all the books, though. I've read Think and Grow Rich 20 times. Well, you're still poor. So it's like, I guess there's like two sides of the spectrum. I'd rather be on my side than that side.
I'm thinking. Yeah, you're doing just fine.
I'm definitely more of an audiobook person, but there is something therapeutic.
I was going to say, reading is like therapeutic. I don't even really enjoy like business books per se. Like it's not even the stuff I enjoy to read.
It's just a different medium too. Like I love podcasts. I consume tons of podcasts.
Same.
Right?
Yeah.
So if I see somebody who's like renowned for writing a great business book, I'm going to listen to a bunch of their podcasts and try to get a lot of the information there just because that's more, I don't know, that's more entertaining for me. It's something that I actually will see through.
Yeah.
That's actually a good question for you. Is like for me, at each season of my life, like when we were doing the podcast, like you were legit someone that we looked up to, Gary Vee. Like there's always been people that are doing things that I try to almost embody or be like. Who are those people for you? I know you mentioned Robert Greene. Who else would you say in this season of your life?
Yeah. I think I used to look up to people too much as like false gods. I would really idolize people a little bit too much. So I don't know if I can say that there's anyone I really look up to at this point in time.
I like that. That's a very honest answer.
Yeah. If I had to, I would probably say someone in our space. I don't know exactly who, but I know that there's people in our space that I do really respect for sure. Yeah.
I like that.
I mean, yeah, like sitting across from him.
Thank you, bro. Likewise.
I guess I would call you one of them. Yeah, for sure.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like it's more healthy to look up to people for specific qualities as opposed to like idolizing them as a person. Like they can do no wrong. That's where you usually get into murky waters.
Yeah. Like I look up to one of my team members, Christine, for the simple reason that she never overshares. She is so professional. And me, as a serial oversharer, like I probably, like literally before we started this podcast, I overshared. Like that's classic me. I share things sometimes that don't need to be shared and sometimes shouldn't be shared. Oh my gosh, I'm striving to be like her.
I feel like in certain situations, yeah. But like in situations like this, I feel like relationship building is more so about like vulnerability.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
And it just helps us to be closer, yeah.
Look, man, it's hard in this season of life that I'm in right now because I've been burned.
Yeah.
Very recently, within the past, 6 to 12 calendar months. So I'm at a, it's hard for me to be a little bit vulnerable because I don't know
who's really
I don't know
on
who
your
I can
side,
trust.
Right?
I'm, because of, and I don't know if this is the best message to hear. It's good and it's bad. It's a double-edged sword. But my girlfriend's, kind of putting in my ear, like reminding me because I am an oversharer. Like, you don't know who you can trust, and I think that there's a lot of truth to what she's saying, but I also think that I have to be careful to not lose a part of who I am because I'm not willing to share and get vulnerable with people.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, I feel like we've done a ton of reminiscing on this podcast so far.
Dang,
and
man.
yeah. And you just shared
like,
with everybody that, like, hey, you're kind of at a season in your life where you had to start over, which in a way is exciting. So on the bright side of that, I would like to talk about what's next for you and like where do you want to go these next 3 years? I know that you don't want to throw out any like crazy goals or promises because once again, that's not, I don't know if that's necessarily helpful, but like in the immediate future, what are you looking to accomplish? What are you looking to tackle?
It's a good question. I wouldn't say that I really have of course I have, EOS, quarterly rocks and issues list, annual goals, 3-year goals, 5-year picture. I got all that. But I don't know. I don't really, it's not something I'm really thinking about for better or worse, to be honest. Of course, I think that you should build any business to be able to sell it, whether you want to sell it or not, because I think it's just malpractice if you're not building a business that's built to sell and built to last, built to scale without you. A durable business. But at the same time, like, I don't know if this is a business Zeus. It's so core to who I am. I don't know if it is one that I am eventually going to want to sell. So I don't know if that's really in the plans. But really the goal, man, it's just to continue having fun and obviously continue growing the business and just continue to become a thought leader in the agency systems and operations.
Become a thought leader
realm
in the agency system.
Because I'm fucking smart.
Yeah.
I love the way my brain works. And it's just so, because it's so connected to my childhood and the way my brain works, it's so in flow with who I am and what I do. Like, they're so interlocked. Because of that, I have a lot of gifts and I have a lot to share. And I'm stepping up the sharing now. Like, I'm making an effort to do that. More podcasts, YouTube, Twitter, like, just express your uniqueness and what you have within you. I think much of the past 2 years, I've been in a not sharing mode.
I was going to say, you reeled it back, right?
Yeah.
Kept it to yourself.
Yeah. Like, I basically cold turkey stopped podcasting for almost 2 years.
Wow.
And without any update to people who listened.
Yeah, they're like, where'd you go? Did
Right.
you die? Like,
Yeah.
COVID.
So I'm in a giving, sharing mood. I'm ready to put myself out there again.
I like that.
It's like it's a second rise.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think that's the answer right there.
Yeah. The second I've been ascending, I had a really I would say starting 2.5 years ago, I went through like a really dark period where I was really, really very lost. So I just didn't know what I wanted to do. Didn't know who I was, didn't know what I liked to do in the realm of business. And, it's been a process of self-discovery. And during that period, I guess I would say I was very much depressed and like in the sense that I just didn't want to share. Yeah.
Now, what do you bring this time around, this second time of putting yourself out there, given like all the learnings you had the first time around?
Yeah. It's like, it's so cringy to say, but it's like I'm still not as humble as I should be, but there's a different level of humility to it. Because again, like, obviously I still have work to do because here I am talking about how humble I am now, but I relatively compared to who I was 2-3 years ago, like way, a lot of growth in that area. So I think that's the big difference that helps you to see things more clearly, be more vigilant.
It's very biblical, it's like minimize yourself to maximize really it's not you, it's the message that's most important, right? Yeah. And like you said, you have real value to share, and it's almost like selfish in a way to keep that all to yourself, right? Yeah. And so like keeping yourself not at the forefront maybe, I think is such a cool way to approach it. Is just making the message, putting that in the spotlight.
Yeah.
So.
Just sharing the insights, the stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. It feels like you found your purpose in a way.
Definitely.
And I know that this is funny, but me and Andre ran into this random guy at the airport who overheard me on like a back end sales call. And he just started asking me questions like, press me on why I did this, why I did that. And it was a very helpful conversation because right when the guy answered, I could tell that he really knew his shit. But the way he framed it was perfect. He was like, people in the beginning have a finance problem. Once you solve that finance problem, they then have a time problem. Then, once you solve that time problem, they usually have a purpose problem. Like that's usually the sequence of what it goes through. Like agency, for example, I've got no money. Now I work with these guys over at Quintessential. They show me how to fill my calendar with leads, close all these deals. Now I got a time issue with your content, with Andre's content. We show them how to solve that time issue. Then you may have a purpose issue, right? So it's
what do you do with that free time now?
Like, why am I doing this in the first place?
And why am I doing this?
Yep.
And, and it's crazy. Like, I think about this a lot. This really banks off of what you're saying. You work so much for so long. You think, I'm just gonna I'm going to work really hard for a couple of years, make my money, and be done. But what happens is your hobbies atrophy, and you forget what it is you even like what do you even do outside of work?
Yeah.
And that's a tough place to be. So it's like, I get people freedom. We build freedom, literally.
And then they don't know what to do with it.
And unfortunately, I'm not a life coach. That's the next problem is yours to figure out.
Yeah.
That's the purpose problem that you're talking about.
I know. I've been asked that on like 2 podcasts. You're like, oh, okay, you got the business, you got this, you got that. What else do you do? I'm like, kind of just that.
Yeah.
Kind of just the business.
So let me ask you guys this. What is next for you 3? Well, 3 out of the 4 co-founders here of Quintessential. Where do you guys see yourself in 3 years?
Christian?
Make it a gold standard for online education.
Yeah. And on to kind of already.
Biggest thing, dude, I would say for me is and I always say this, but it's not like a direct answer, but it's just more events. And you signed up for the London event, right?
Last minute, yeah. Let's
go, bro. It's going to be hype. We're so excited for London.
Yeah.
But more of that. More of this. Sitting down and having conversations, being able to connect with you after so many years online. For me, that's where I told Christian, if I could podcast, and it's not even just podcasting that I love. It's just the in-person connection.
Dude.
The community aspect of it. That's what fills my heart, dude.
I was thinking this on the way up here, too, because I had a lot of time to think because it was a 2-hour drive from where I'm from. I have to admit, I envy your guys' life here in Tampa because a lot of the people are here.
Move here, bro.
Well, I've got roots, man. I am a homeowner. I am a homeowner down south there. Of course, I can rent it out and all that stuff. But
only 2 hours away, bro.
It's only 2 hours away. And I do plan on, I would like to be hanging out more in Tampa this summer for sure. We should definitely play basketball.
Pickleball.
Make a day out of it. I don't. No. I don't, but I'm down to learn, yeah. I do. It's funny. My house, I got to send you a picture of my backyard. I live on a golf course. It's right there. I go out on my deck in the morning and 7 a.m. There's the golfers.
You hit the temple with a slice and you're dead.
Yeah, man. But anyway, I feel like I'm, by going and traveling and for 6 months at a time and by living in, Naples, Florida, I feel like I'm on an island.
Yeah.
It's not a big, Naples not a city where a bunch of young people who think alike are. I'm hard pressed to meet other entrepreneurs.
Well, we got dinner and you're gonna meet a bunch of them.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah. So it's just more of that, dude. And we're here. We're doing it. So, but I feel the same way. To be honest, my perspective is I'm not doing enough of it. And then you hear people that are you envy it or it looks like you're doing a lot. And I don't know. I don't like to play the comparison game.
Yeah,
but it's just that's why my head immediately goes to more events because I just need more of that.
Yeah.
I want more of that.
And you guys are doing such a service to the community and just our community and just people in general by putting on these events because especially since the thing that shall not be named happened in that year a couple of years ago, and
COVID.
the world just went the world went remote, and in a lot of ways more efficient, for the better. But there's been a
lost sense of community,
dude.
Absolutely,
it's a great tragedy that I don't feel like it is being talked about enough.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like the fallout is happening now.
It's happening,
and a lot of people are not self-aware enough to realize it. I feel like so many people I'm still stuck in the COVID bubble, dude. Like, I'm working from my bedroom every single day, and I feel like before COVID, that wasn't the norm at all. Like, you go to like different places, like, I don't know.
Yeah, man. I honestly dream about sometimes, like, obviously I have a worldwide team, like, as we all do. I do dream about, though, going into an office and hanging out with my people every day. It would be so fun. I'm meant to do that, I think.
I put out a tweet about that. I said, one of my main goals in life is to buy, like, a sick office and have the entire team there. Like, that'd just be the coolest thing.
You know why? Because I feel like there's just a level of vulnerability that happens in person.
Absolutely.
That doesn't happen over Zoom or Google Meet. I have to say, it's a little bit more awkward. I think, it's just awkward.
Because there's nowhere to hide,
Yeah, I love being here. I just love being with people, and I think I could really take things to the next level if I had an in-person team where we were just doing the shit every day.
That'd be so
together.
cool,
you guys have that. Your executive teams here.
Enough
not
of
everybody,
Enough
but
of it. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, more of it for sure. That's kind of the path, I think, for me at least, to answer your initial question. But
yeah, I was gonna say my answer to that question of like, hey, what's next for Quintessential? What do you want to do? What's the purpose long term? I feel like for me, and Christian has said this a couple times on Twitter, like, we want to be the greatest online education company in history. I want to have just like the most baller group of alumni ever. Meaning, like, not only do I want to be the best company in the space, but I want to see what everybody else does with their business. Because I legitimately think, and like me growing up, the one book I read was 0 to 1 about the PayPal mafia. Like, I want to see a Quintessential mafia of just like killers that go on to do really special things and just stay in touch with those people by having events, making those in-person connections stronger. Because once you get to a certain point, I feel like it's going to be a video game. Like, I want to be at a point where 20 years down the line, I'm buying a coffee shop with a Quintessential alumni member just for the fuck of it, because I want coffee. And there's no good coffee place around me. Like, stuff like that is kind of, I guess, like my long-term vision, what I would like to see come to reality.
You guys are building like a Roman Empire of sorts that are going to have descendants for ages. Think about impact.
We just hope it collapses after we're gone.
no.
That wouldn't be good.
Not joking.
No, I mean, even if, the business does, like, I'm talking about like the knowledge and the impact. Like, I don't really know a bigger community in this space. Maybe there is, I don't know, but you guys are putting your stamp on the future is what I'm trying to say.
Sure. Appreciate it. You're on that stamp, bro. Seriously, you have such an impact on the community. You don't even know it.
What I thought was cool, Louis Schulman, he was screen sharing with me the other day. I'm not in this channel for some reason. It's the Cosmo preview.
Okay.
Which is like
the AI.
Yeah, that has basically programmed all of the Quintessential coaches' knowledge into it.
Yeah.
And he was like, Louis was typing out, like, is it Louis or Lewis? I only met him once. Shoot, I hope I'm not saying.
I say Lewis.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Lewis.
Okay, it's probably Lewis.
Okay, yeah.
Anyway, very sorry, Lewis. Anyhow, that's like the rule number 1 in How to Win Friends and Influence People. Don't get someone's name wrong. I just ruined my relationship with Lewis. Right? Anyway, he was showing me like, who's Jordan Paris? Who's the systems guy? Jordan, he does this. He talks about this. I'm like, dang, that's cool.
Yeah.
You're in there, bro.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. We'll do a lot more together, too.
I got to make sticktalk history and be the first host to walk off. I'm about to pee myself.
Oh, no.
Actually.
Dude, I was wondering, you guys do long podcasts. Like, what happens when someone needs to use the facilities, man?
Well, this is
Diaper, typically. With me and Andre, we're professionals. He doesn't bring a diaper to the set.
You want to do the lightning round without our fallen host over there?
Yeah. Please, let's get this thing started while the podcast is the real three here. And
I'll
Chris
ask
is not
Christian's
poisoning
question
it.
that he
Yeah, go ahead.
typically asks,
I
which
had a
is...
hard time sitting up in this chair.
I know, I slouched down. I got to catch myself. But if you could have dinner with any three people, who would they be and why?
Got Robert Greene. I would say then another one would be Christopher Columbus.
Christopher Columbus.
Because of his kingly aura and energy. He came from nothing. And however, he's getting kings and queens to grant his requests for funding for these voyages and for this crew, massive expense, massive journey, like, which is, and if you think about the absurdness of the idea, of the venture back then, like, oh my gosh, like crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, like I'm going to go to places where people think you just fall off the earth.
Yeah.
But give me a couple, equivalent of $1 million to do it.
Yeah, crazy. Why did kings and queens feel so comfortable in his presence and grant him these wishes? This is a chapter.
Guys had a rough last decade or so.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Whatever, though. He's put his stamp on history. His name lives on. Like, that's something to really admire, I think.
Absolutely.
But anyway, yeah, this is a chapter in the laws of human nature or 48 laws of power. It's basically about having that king-like energy that is so attractive.
I think it's the conviction.
And yes, totally. Yeah, it's your opinion of yourself has just such a decided influence on who you are and what you do and can do in this world. So that's 2 out of 3. The third might be, I'm not very good at this lightning, guys.
No,
like thunder.
Crushing it so
those
far.
are two.
No, I mean, like, I'm going slow. It's not very lightning like.
Oh. The questions are lightning because we've done them a couple times.
Yeah.
But the answers can be as slow as you want.
The third one, we got Robert Greene, Christopher Columbus, and then maybe like James Allen, which is the author of a book called As a Man Thinketh, which I was going to bring a copy for all of you today, and I forgot. Usually I always have it in my trunk to give to people.
Good one.
What's the book?
As a Man Thinketh. One of the first, self-help books back in 1904 or 1903 is when it was published. It's just a 24-page absolute
24
manifesto.
pages.
Oh, I could finish that for sure.
You get it for literally get it for $3.99 on Amazon, 24 pages. I reread it multiple times per year. My highlights, it has broken the record for highlights in a book. Like, I've highlighted 75% of the book. It's so powerful. The gist of it is, listen to the episode with J.K. Molina. I think he was talking about this, but you are your thoughts. That's the gist of the book. So those are my 3.
Solid.
I stole your question, Christian.
That's fine. If you could prepare one dinner for everyone close to you and to show off your cuisine knowledge, what would you do?
Yeah, at a company retreat back in November, or what was it, October, I made for everybody this unbelievable, I will show you a picture maybe sometime of this massive bed of homemade macaroni, beef macaroni and cheese that I made. Oh, everybody loved it. It was delicious. Best I ever made. I then tried to make it again for Thanksgiving, and it wasn't a bad batch. I didn't do good. But I made the best ever there. So that would be part of it. And then I would say, I ate at a place called Restaurant Porat on the Mediterranean Sea in Montenegro, in Budva, Montenegro. And I'll just go with that meal. Sea bass carpaccio, nice fresh fish. It's all fresh here. You can't get fresh seafood in the United States.
No, but on the Mediterranean.
Yeah, you can.
In
the New England?
about it, dude.
It's right off the boat.
Oh, well, I haven't been to New England, but
Fair enough.
certainly
Naples?
I've.
They probably import
dude,
that. No.
Dude, like, there's no fresh fish in Naples, I'm telling you.
Considering the people there.
I had the freshest fish of my life in Europe. We would have it like every night.
Same in Lebanon. They have it on the ice bed, like the fish. And I was like, it looks nasty, but you have it. It's just so good.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So good.
So sea bass carpaccio, appetizer, fresh fish with some healthy vegetables, and then a tiramisu, an Italian tiramisu afterwards.
My favorite dessert.
Or gelato, or there's one more thing. Just chocolate in general. I love chocolate.
Love chocolate.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I guess I'll steal your question since you stole his.
Everyone's stealing.
If you could have, also, I was just thinking we've got the best title for this episode. Christian walks off the podcast. That'll be a good clickbait one. Right. If you could have one tweet where it's guaranteed that every single user on the platform sees it, what would it be?
I think it'd be what I said earlier, that your opinion of yourself is what matters most. That's the opinion that matters most, because what you think about yourself, how you think about yourself in your head, your identity, your self-talk about yourself, that has a decided influence on who you are and what you do.
And how you show up in the world.
And how you show up,
Yeah, love that.
Absolutely, dude. That was a banger episode. And
so fun.
One thing that I definitely hope comes from this is just you putting yourself out there, sharing more value, just sharing more of the knowledge and experiences you have with people outside of Quintessential, just on YouTube, on Twitter, on all these socials. So where can our audience find you, follow you, and just learn about your journey?
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't necessarily have like a go-to platform right now, but I would say at Jordan T. Paris on Twitter. And then, I've got jordanparis.com is my personal site where you'll find all of my podcasts. You can search them. You can subscribe there. It's called Building Freedom with Jordan Paris. The name is obviously changed from Growth Mindset. Yeah, it's like complimentary of what I do.
Yeah, absolutely.
But like, I actually changed the name to that before I started this business.
Oh,
so
right.
like, I'm just I'm all about freedom. Yeah, in every way. So, yeah, that's
freedom and flow.
Yep.
I love it, dude.
What's the YouTube? Because I know you're going to be focusing there more.
Yeah. I don't know when this will come out, but maybe by the time it comes out, there will be some good videos there. I have like 300 videos of like just like stuff that I uploaded back in the old podcast days. Nothing that really got views, but anyway, it's like youtube.com/jordanparis.
Perfect.
Awesome. Dude, thanks so much
Love
for
that.
coming
Thanks
on.
for coming on, brother.
Crushed it.
Oh, good fun, guys.
Crushed it.
I thought that was really good.
That was just like a
phenomenal.
Good handshakes all around.